Folks, breaking news out of New Orleans, where a live press conference is underway regarding yesterday's terror incident on New Year's Day. We're going to go live now and cover that. We'll get to the news here on Chris Wyatt Reports in just a little while. But first, we're going to go to this news conference in New Orleans as it unfolds right now.
This horrific attack and their loved ones. 14 innocent victims were killed in this senseless attack, and at least 35 are injured. We cannot ease the grief people in this community and across the nation are feeling at this time. But rest assured, we stand with you and in support of you. All the resources, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later, all the resources of the FBI are being focused on tracking down every piece of evidence, every lead, every interview, every potential lead we've got. While I won't be able to answer all your questions today, my goal is to be as forthcoming as possible with you on what we've uncovered so far. First and foremost, let me be very clear about this point. This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. This was obviously a critical incident, and with that, lots of information
from an enemy within,
from law enforcement,
someone we allow in our midst,
responders, and the public. We have been aggressively running down these tips and information. As you all know, that takes time, and we will continue to do so until every lead has been followed through on. This investigation is only a little more than 24 hours old. So I ask you to keep in mind that as I go through some of the specifics later. But at this point, currently, and this is another fact I want to be clear on, we do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack except for Shamsuddin Jabbar.
It's not what they said yesterday. Not what the FBI said yesterday.
A little bit about what the FBI is doing. So we are surging people and assets to the area from across the region and across the nation. Special agents in multiple field offices across the country have been deployed and are assisting with potential aspects of this investigation and following up on every lead. Additional teams of special agents, professional staff, and victim specialists continue to arrive to provide more investigative power and assistance to the victims and their families. We've also forward deployed a number of our critical incident response group assets, including members of our hostage rescue team, special agent bomb technicians, and crisis management coordinators. In addition, we have deployed more evidence response technicians to continue to process the various scenes that we have. So far, we have received just over 400 tips from the public, and that information is being followed up on both here in New Orleans and across the country. Some of the tips are here in New Orleans, and there are other tips in other states across the country that we are following up on. The FBI team and our law enforcement partners here are also reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance and other video from both the French Quarter and other locations. As for a timeline, at this point, investigators believe Jabbar picked up the rented F-150 in Houston, Texas on December 30th. He then drove from Houston to New Orleans on the evening of the 31st, and he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers.
The believers. There you go. Us K words.
He stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. FBI and ATF. FBI. We have a couple different scenes at the location. We have released a scene at Bourbon Street. That scene has been released. We also have a scene off of Mandeville Address where we're currently searching that scene right now. FBI and ATF agents have secured that house, and that location is being searched for potential evidence. On New Year's morning, Jabbar opened fire after ramming through a blocked off area of Bourbon Street.
Not well
Used his
blocked
truck
off.
as a weapon to run over the victims. Teams of specially trained victim specialists, again, as I said, are on the ground here in New Orleans, assisting survivors of the attack and loved ones of the deceased. We do not believe the public is in any danger around any of these locations. 3 phones linked to Jabbar have been recovered, and digital media exploitation is a priority to see what is on the devices and determine if there are any other potential leads. Additionally, we have recovered 2 laptops and are currently reviewing them for any potential leads. Those
I should hope
laptops
so.
were recovered at the Mandeville address. Evidence technicians will also be going over the F-150 truck Jabbar was driving. As you know, we recovered an ISIS flag from the back of the vehicle. Jabbar declared his support for the terrorist group on social media, as I stated before, as he made his way to New Orleans. FBI bomb technicians also recovered 2 IEDs in coolers, one from the cross-section of Bourbon and Orleans Street, and the second at an intersection approximately 2 blocks away. There were multiple reports of other devices. Those reports turned out to be misinformation or not actual functioning devices. Those are the only 2 devices that we've been able to recover that were functional. Both devices were rendered safe on scene. We did obtain surveillance footage showing Jabbar placing the devices where they were found. As I said before, 2 other items of interest were determined not to be IEDs. A little bit about Jabbar. Jabbar himself was born in the United States and is a U.S. military veteran. We are looking in everything in his life. While we have interviewed many people who know Jabbar, we still need to talk to others. Whether you know Jabbar personally, worked with him, served in the military, or saw him in New Orleans or Texas, we need to talk to you. You may not think you have relevant information, but what you know could tie in to one of our investigative leads. Specifically, we want to talk to anyone who was in the French Quarter on New Year's Eve or early on New Year's Day. That includes people spotted near one of the 2 IEDs on Bourbon Street. The IED was inside a cooler, and many people stopped and looked at the cooler and then continued on their way.
That's scary.
Let's be clear, again, we do not believe at this point these people are involved in this incident in any way. We want to speak to them as witnesses and want to know what they saw and when.
And what they didn't see, what they didn't do.
I went down to the crime scene last night. It is very hard to put into words
I can imagine.
what it looked like and how difficult it was.
It's a war zone.
Anyone with information can call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI or send digital tips to fbi.gov/Bourbon Street attack. Early this morning, evidence response teams finished their work at the crime scene. Bourbon Street has been turned over to the city of New Orleans. As you know, there's also an FBI investigation in Las Vegas.
Yep, here we go.
Following up on all potential leads and not ruling everything out. However,
No
at this
links.
point,
No links.
there is no definitive link between the attack here in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas. And
Doesn't mean there isn't one.
As I close, I'll preface everything with what I started with in the beginning, which was this is very early in an investigation like this.
He's from the FBI, Shawnee.
Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this tragedy and everyone impacted across the country. They remain at the heart of our investigation. I also, although I've only been on the ground here a short time, I also want to express a sincere appreciation for our partners here, which include the U.S. Attorney's Office, HSI, ATF, the New Orleans PD, the Louisiana State Police, the Governor's Office, and countless others. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the special agent in charge of ATF here, Josh Jackson.
He was from the FBI, the field
Good
agent.
afternoon. As stated, my name is Joshua Jackson. I am the special agent in charge for the ATF New Orleans Field Division. And ATF's primary mission is preventing, reducing, and solving violent crime throughout the United States and abroad. Solving part is the focus of this investigation. ATF resources that have been brought to bear to the city and to focus with our federal, state, and local partners have been our national response team. We spoke about the scene that's still being processed now. The National Response Team of ATF is a team of certified fire investigators, certified explosive.
ATF is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. ATF.
Identify what happened at the location in Mandeville and identify how that fire started and move the investigation forward from there. Additional resources that ATF has brought to bear into the city. There's our ATF Special Response Team. This is a tactical team capable of handling any sort of enforcement operation. This team is deployed, on set, and ready for the Sugar Bowl today. This team is also made available to the Louisiana State Police and also New Orleans Police Department to assist with any efforts that they may have during this period. Additional resources, as the governor alluded to, he executed executive powers and had an emergency declared to where ATF was able to tap in to emergency support function 13 resources. This allowed us to bring additional explosive detection canines so that we can safely sweep the city and safely sweep the Super Bowl in preparation for the game today.
Sugar Bowl, not the Super Bowl.
Still be in the city as we lead up to the Super Bowl and through Mardi Gras. These type of ATF resources will be here. The last resources ATF has brought to bear, and probably the most important one, is our victim witness coordinators. These folks come in and they provide resources to the victims and the family members that have suffered greatly during this tragedy. The entire city hurts, but the victims and the family members are in need of resources and care long after this investigation wraps up. This time next year, it'd be hard for the families and friends who suffered during this event. So our victim witness coordinators are working with the FBI, the City of New Orleans coordinators to provide resources to these folks out here. And as we move forward, ATF will be committed. We will work with the investigative team moving this investigation forward, but also we'll be here to make sure the city is safe and prepared as we move into the Super Bowl. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our mayor of this great city, New Orleans. Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning once again. And I just want to just echo my thank yous to the unified command of our law enforcement partners.
She's short. I got to shrink myself.
Federal, state, and governor. Governor, thank you for your partnership.
Yeah, okay, let's get to it, sweetheart.
I also want to thank the residents and the visitors of the city of New Orleans for your patience, for your support, and most of all, your prayers. Our hearts and prayers continue to go out to the victims' families, and the city of New Orleans, we're resilient.
Yeah, sure.
And as I stated
People are still dead.
yesterday, my focus in terms of a priority has been on our victims. As you heard, that yes, the FBI was able to clear Bourbon Street. And what that meant also for me in this city was that we were able to remove our victims, identify them, and notify their families. Real reverence. They mattered, the families matter, and matter to the city of New Orleans.
You're supposed to see me, Meerkat.
In addition to that, I want to just thank again our federal partners in Washington, listening to my plea personally for the additional resources to allow for the scene to be cleared, and again, attending to our victims. I walked by each one, and I did the sign of cross in my own way, because reverence, again, is important. So while we have been able to have Bourbon Street returned back to the city of New Orleans, and the due diligence has been done, that then allowed me to give the go-ahead to begin the cleaning of Bourbon Street. That started happening in the morning about 2 a.m. It was completed before 8 a.m. this morning.
Not even 24
That
hours
has
after the
really
incident.
set the tone, I would say. And with the confidence that I have in the law enforcement partners, all of the resources that have been activated, how we have made sure that safety continues to be our top priority.
Yeah. So you have now cleaned and whitewashed the crime scene less than 24 hours after the terrorist incident occurred, yet we still don't have full access to the information that occurred on Butler on the 13th of July, 2024, an attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. We don't have that information. This is unbelievable. The Secret Service cremates the body of the attempted assassin before we have any chance to get any evidence from July 13th. Now we have New Orleans, a terrorist incident that occurred at 3:15 in the morning, and the next morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're already cleaning the streets. What the hell is going on here?
That the city of New Orleans is not only ready for game day today, but we're ready to continue to host large-scale events in our city because we are built to host at every single time.
You're built for crime is what you're built for.
I want to, again, thank all of those who responded to the FBI's call for information and tips. As you heard, that has been useful. Continue to do that. The investigation is still active and absolutely under the FBI's leadership. We will continue to operate and cooperate as we always have. So I want to also thank all of our partners for the added resources for victim and crisis management. We know that that's, again, important. Working with our partner, the Greater New Orleans Foundation, we have set up a fund for our victims' families for not only today but into the future. As you heard, this is going to be a long process for our people. So with that, the city of New Orleans, and with all of my confidence, we are ready. And we could not get here again without the unified presence, support, and cooperation. We are stronger together. And I want to say again, thank you so much. Thank you, Governor. So once again, the governor would like me to reiterate that Bourbon Street will be prepared for full activation before game time today. We know 3 p.m., so we're working towards 2:30 p.m. But prior to game time, the kickoff, Bourbon Street will be restored. So we're hard at work now. Our teams are now, and of course, working with our business community to serve our public and serve our residents and our visitors alike.
Going to take questions or no? There's the governor again.
In closing, I want to rest people assured that right now in the city of New Orleans, there's an unprecedented amount of law enforcement resources.
Yeah, and they were there before the terrorist attack. It didn't stop it.
And to hunt down and to finalize this investigation. I want to thank the FBI and all of our federal partners for the amount of resources they have poured into the city. This type of event can happen in any city. And that's the tragedy of it. And I think it's important for people to understand that to protect our citizens in America from evil, you have to crush it.
You have to get rid of Joe Biden.
You can't go out there and placate it. You can't go out there and say, oh, I'm going to put this in place and that in place and hope that evil doesn't show up on your doorstep, because it will. You have to crush it. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put it all behind us. We're going to continue to keep the victims, those
Trying to
that
sound
are in
tough.
the hospital, either fighting for their lives or trying to recover, in our thoughts and in our prayers. But you know, this morning, and I don't want to single out just one news source, but I just happened to turn on Fox and Friends, and that was a young man who was interviewed, who was actually on Bourbon Street during this horrific act of terrorism. And They closed out by asking him, what now? And I think he summed it up. He said, look, we can't live in fear because fear will paralyze us. He said, we come down to the city to enjoy ourselves and to entertain ourselves and to be with our friends and with our families because that's who we are. Louisiana invented hospitality.
Bullshit.
The people of this city care for each other. And believe you me, we
Oh, yeah.
care about
Sure they do.
each one of the lives.
That's why they looted in Katrina.
We will never forget them. But it would be a tragedy if we let their losses be snuffed out because of fear. This city will be back. We will be open to family and friends and loved ones who want some time to relax from the pressures of life. And so today, we're going to have us a sugar bowl. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to keep those, who have lost loved ones in mind. And we're going to get on to the business of this city and this great country. With that, I'll take any questions.
Governor, this is for you and the Assistant Director. The message has really changed since yesterday.
Yep.
Yesterday, the FBI said that people should be vigilant, that he did not.
Now you're telling them to go watch the game.
He likely had help, and now you're coming out the very next day and saying he was a lone wolf, everything is safe.
Exactly. Completely opposite story what they told us yesterday.
How can you be so sure just 12 hours later?
Well, we're going to bring him up. All right, but here's what I want to remind everyone. Like I was a deputy sheriff. Right? I worked in a jail. I worked on the street. I worked on the interstate. I served warrants. I can tell you. Look, in today's world, I get it. Information, we get information like that. Everybody lives in a 15-second TikTok video. We think that life operates like it does on our phones, and it just doesn't. Information changes. In fact, that's why we ask the media for patience. We get information, like I said, no one dumps 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and puts it together in 5 seconds.
But you did in 12 hours. That's your
Okay?
point. That's the guy's point.
And what I would tell you is that I appreciate the fact that what we did was we're under-promising and over-delivering today. And I think that's important. And I want to remind something.
Stop crowing about your success.
Law enforcement has taken it on the chin, unfairly.
Really?
And there are great men and women serving in the FBI, in ATF, in Louisiana State Police, in New Orleans PD. Our sheriffs
people are
have been
dead.
Unbelievable in this.
Because your barriers were
And I
ineffective.
tell you, they
Your
want
city
to
sat on its
you.
ass for... Oh, I'm sorry. I got to shut
And
this
we
idiot up.
have to
Your city of New Orleans sat on its ass replacing its bollards for years. We saw what happened at Berlin. We saw what happened in London on the bridge. We saw what happened in Paris. We saw what happened all over the world with people using cars as weapons, something I predicted over 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago. And you useless lard asses sat on your ass, the governor of Louisiana and the mayor, and didn't fix this problem.
Put it eloquently, as Khabib said. In a lot of these instances, I also had the opportunity to deploy to Boss Bomb, and I will tell you this is almost carbon copy to Boss Bomb as far as the inaccurate reporting that comes up. And what the governor said is we want to be transparent with the public.
Do you really?
The FBI not being transparent. We're being as transparent as we possibly can. And unfortunately, as we're being transparent, unfortunately for that, there is some information that we have to go back and recorrect. And in this particular incident, you heard the resources that we brought, that the other state and locals have brought. We've had 24 hours now to go through media, to go through phones, to interview people, to analyze those videos, analyze other databases. And after all of that, there's been hundreds and hundreds of leads done just in 24 hours. We're confident at this point that there is no accomplices. And I'll give you an idea of how that information sometimes, a lot of the early reports came out that there were extra people that were setting the coolers down, right? It turns out those were just patrons on the street that were looking inside the coolers, right? We didn't.
Bro,
know
that was stupid.
We had to kind of track all that down and put that to rest. So that's just an example, one of the pieces of information, but there were other pieces of information that after we got our feet under us a little bit and on the ground here, we were able to put together a much more accurate picture of the subject and his attention.
Was he a test tool? We just wanted to double check.
Yes.
14, not 15.
Yeah, 14, and then the shooter himself would be 15 total, to include the shooter.
What are the terrorists wearing
The
the suicide
IEDs,
vests?
were the IEDs pipe bombs, and have you discovered a remote detonator anywhere?
Good questions. Were they pipe bombs? Have you discovered a remote detonator?
What time roughly were they planted?
Yeah, those roughly a couple hours. I don't have the exact times in front of me. A couple hours prior to the attack. To attack, probably after midnight. After midnight, I want to say 1 or 2 in the morning, but I can't.
The area came back.
Correct. That's our assumption now. I mean, we still have a lot to work through. We're getting more surveillance video and everything else, but that's the assumption.
Exactly right, Rain. Exactly.
Done on Bourbon Street. Would there have been canines out on New Year's Eve? Would there have been bomb sweeps done?
Look, I
as part of
think,
the regular precautions?
let me just say this, and either Joe or Rob will correct me. Look, a bomb dog doesn't operate like a drug dog, right? On Bourbon Street, there's a lot of senses, right? A lot of smells. I don't think you can run a bomb dog down Bourbon Street with thousands of people there and be able to sniff out a bomb. What
Yeah, but
we've
you don't
been
know,
doing,
Governor.
what they have been doing is certainly a complete sweep of the quarter because of the limited amount of traffic that's been out there. Let me just say this. I think this may help. It would be my hope that as some additional time goes through, maybe closer to maybe the beginning of next week, we will, if we've got it to what extent buttoned up as we could, I would work with the FBI and the city, and maybe we can come up with a timeline to be able to get you those information, kind of walk everyone through from day one through. I think it's extremely premature.
I cannot turn the volume up on the broadcast. That is the source that's providing that is up all the way. It's 100%. It's 100% on my stream. It's just poor audio quality on that end. The governor is a loudmouth, but not speaking loudly enough, whereas the FBI agent is speaking loudly enough.
One at a time.
Being done to make Bourbon Street safer tonight than it was New Year's Eve? Are temporary bollards being brought in to block off the street, and why weren't those used?
Are temporary bollards coming in to block the street now, or why weren't they used previously? That was my question immediately when it happened.
Every time some bad guy does something like this, there's what we call an after-action review. Because again, nothing is 100%. We have reinforced the area.
That's what he asked.
We have deployed some additional types of assets. I personally think it's up to the city or other. I don't like to give specifics because
No,
I
you
don't like
shouldn't.
to tell the enemy what we got.
Exactly.
But I can tell you we're in better shape than we were before.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Can you speak to the Mandeville scene?
Sit.
Can you speak to the Mandeville scene?
And then we'll go to you.
Some neighbors at that site told us they smelled smoke early in the morning. Was there a fire there? Any kind of burning happening?
Yeah, great.
I believe that fire happened after the sunset.
Neighbors smelled smoke this morning. Was there a fire?
That's correct. Yeah, I'll move to 18. I do want to address the suicide vest question. I want to kill that one right away. There was no evidence that the subject was wearing a suicide vest at all. So I will turn the Mandeville stuff over to ATL.
ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
The fire at the Mandeville scene. So our working theory now is that the fire started after Jabbar was already deceased. There's a lot of different ways that could happen. You could have different time devices. You could have a long cord that extended that time. You could also have pressure cookers that were put on top of the stove filled with gasoline, and then it went off. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that is why our ATF National Response Team is here to answer those questions and get that investigative lead back to our team. So more to come on that. We're still processing that scene. We're out there right now.
Are you
But we
able to
understand
clarify
how he became radicalized over all of this time. What brought him to Bourbon Street? Do we understand? Was there any international?
That's a good question. What radicalized and what brought him to Bourbon Street today, or
Sure,
first?
A lot of questions we're still asking ourselves. We know that he specifically picked out Bourbon Street. Not quite sure why. I mean, I think one can assume that it was lots of people New Year's Eve, with a target for an attack. That's the stuff in the coming days, as far as that path to radicalization, that we're really going to be digging into and making a priority of. So, what I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS, and so we're digging through more of the social media, more interviews, working with some of our other partners to ascertain just how to ascertain a little bit more about that connection.
Oh, we're gonna do one more. Kate.
Right there. You've had your hand up for a while.
Here.
Sir.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's actually for Special Agent Wyatt. Sir,
I prefer those. I'm gonna show you.
In order to reassure people, would you be able to explain the analysis and evidence that has led to this most recent understanding that he was a lone actor and that there is at this point, at least from your understanding, no further danger to the public?
Sure. I think a lot of that, multiple interviews, the hundreds of interviews that we've conducted so far, the social media.
Hundreds, that's a lot of resources.
Social media review that we've done of his accounts, by my count now, the 5 devices we have, the 3 cell phones and the 2 laptops, been able to initially triage or go through that, and there is just nothing to indicate through call records, through anything on those devices, through interviews, through anything in our systems, that he was aided in this attack by anybody. And again, I have to caveat, like the governor said, this is 24 hours into it.
True.
And that could change, but right now, we've got a much better picture and much more confidence on what we were dealing with than we were just 24 hours ago.
All right, look, thank y'all so very much. Again, we are going to try to get y'all as much information as possible. So, any additional information will be put out through press releases. Thank you so very much.
Or are we gonna be making Bourbon Street a pedestrian only, or are we gonna be allowing cars to drive?
All right, folks, that was a press conference from New Orleans with a gathering of a whole bunch of folks involved there. Welcome back to the program. That's going to do it for the New Orleans piece. I'm going to go with my news broadcast here shortly, but for the moment, I wanted to bring you that live press conference from New Orleans in the aftermath of the New Year's Day terror incident from a Texas resident, a former Army soldier, and a jihadist who murdered 14 people and himself was also killed in a confrontation with law enforcement. They tried to dispel rumors. What I get from this was a lot of crowing about how good they are, how wonderful they are, all the great things they've done to make things better. And I think the judgment of the officials in New Orleans is suspect. You do not clear a crime scene less than 24 hours after a terror incident. This is unbelievable. It's beyond the pale. They are whitewashing this just like they whitewashed the Butler assassination attempt, just like they whitewashed the Miami or the Florida assassination attempt against Trump. This is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. Why is it we learn more about people who push people on the subways in New York City than we learn about these serious events? I have zero confidence in the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, in the FBI, in the state police of New Orleans, of Louisiana, in the governor of Louisiana, who sat up there and crowed. We have to understand, and lots of stuff happens, and we're doing a great job. We've done an amazing job here. We cleared the crime scene in only 23 hours. Listen, dumbass, clearing the crime scene in 23 hours is not something to be crowing about. Also, the mayor of New Orleans, for the victims. How about preventative? Where is counterintelligence? Where is counterterrorism? Yes, if this is in fact a lone wolf incident, okay. But how about you actually start following counterintelligence indicators in the federal government, in the military, to identify these threats. Now we have a situation, which I'm going to talk about on my news broadcast coming up shortly, in which an active duty special operations soldier from the 10th Special Forces Group in Germany purportedly is the guy that blew up the Tesla at the Trump building in Las Vegas. This is insane what is going on here. There is no confidence from these officials. You do not clear a crime scene in 23 hours. The Sugar Bowl should have been postponed until tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday. This is insane. They are more focused on getting people into the Sugar Bowl, into the Superdome, and on Bourbon Street to make money than they are about public safety. These people are an absolute disgrace. Public safety is not their primary concern. The safety of the public is not their issue. Good questions asked by the press corps for a change. Very good questions here, including, hey, so why weren't there any bollards? And have you put anything up since then? And in fact, that he asked if there were temporary bollards, and he said, yes, we've taken countermeasures. That's good to hear. But the mayor trying to evoke for her next campaign sympathy because she cares and she walked the scene and saw all the victims. I don't care about that, sweetheart. What I care about is the incompetence of your police services and this organized effort to cover up what happened. And the conflicting stories coming out of the FBI and coming out of the Louisiana State Police and coming out of the mayor and coming out of the governor and coming out of ATF. Well, actually, they haven't conflicted themselves. The rest of them have. But here is the most obvious question about all this. We heard reports about coolers and about improvised explosive devices being placed in multiple locations. Turns out, according to authorities, most of those were bogus reports. However, they did find 2 improvised explosive devices put in place. And guess what? They have it on camera. So let me ask you this question. Where was law enforcement observing the streets if you found this footage? Now, was the footage obtained from a local pub, a local bar who had a camera outside, or was this government-supplied surveillance that identified this? And if it was government-supplied surveillance, why is there not a command center watching this? We have the technology to identify suspect incidents like this on the street. How is it only after all these people are dead that we discover these IEDs? How is that? And more importantly, Light Rain asked a brilliant question here. How in the world do people open up a cooler, look inside and see wires and an explosive device and just close the lid and walk away? What the hell? What the hell? Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. This is absolute insanity. I do not understand. Do not understand this nonsense. This is absolute insanity. How do you open up a cooler with an IED inside and go, oh, look, it's an IED, and just walk down the street? That would have shut down Bourbon Street right there. Had someone contacted law enforcement and we don't know when they discovered it, but obviously it was before the attack. Had someone told law enforcement, and here's the scarier part. The mayor, the governor crowing about all these resources. We had extra cops. We are over 100% deployment. We have countermeasures, and it still happened. It still happened. So your 100%, your countermeasures are shit. They're useless. Stop lying to the public. Oh, look, you can be comfortable. Trust us. I wouldn't go to the Sugar Bowl to save my life today. Unbelievable. Wow. Here is the other part of this. In the aftermath of this attack, the media released something they shouldn't have known. Law enforcement was warned across the country in every law enforcement bureau in the country, state police, local police, metropolitan police, state investigative service, were warned by U.S. intelligence services and the FBI prior to the holidays about cars being used as weapons to run down pedestrians. They were warned. So why were there not effective countermeasures on the busiest pedestrian street in the entire frickin' country on New Year's Eve? Save Madison or save Times Square. The only place with more people than Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve is Times Square. Why in God's green acre were there not more effective measures here? Now, this isn't Monday morning quarterbacking. I've talked about this issue repeatedly, particularly in the aftermath of the Magdeburg attack that just took place. This is a whitewash. This is a cover-up of the highest proportions, folks. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. So JFM says, since the New Orleans perpetrator was ex-military and Las Vegas one was active military, so all U.S. forces need to be revetted. I hate to ask the question. Well, you can ask the question. So first off, that guy's former military. So unless you're trying to determine investigation, is there something inside the military that's going on? Look for links between the two of them. If you find a link between the two of them, then we have something to go after here. What's happened with the situation in Las Vegas? I don't know. how this guy went off the deep end, if he in fact went off the deep end, or in fact, did he like rent a car and didn't look inside of it? The whole thing is very bizarre. He was supposed to be on leave in Colorado, and here he is in Nevada. So it's not exactly a 5-minute drive. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Yes, military people should be vetted for their reliability. What's fascinating to me is that we have allowed the military to become an experimental lab for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means a lack of diversity, no inclusiveness, and inequality. That's what it means. That's what it means. And so we've allowed that to be the focus of the military rather than war fighting, rather than team building, rather than national security. That's not the focus of the military. They may claim it is, but we see what's going on when men dress up wearing women's skirts, and we're supposed to take them seriously standing in front of a microphone. We're supposed to take that seriously as a national defense officer. I'm sorry, I can't take that seriously. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you are a woman, then be a woman. Don't walk around with your block and tackle pretending to be a woman. So, listen, this is in the early 1990s at Fort Bragg. The Army, to its dismay, discovered that there was a ring of neo-Nazi racists in the 82nd Airborne. They discovered it, and they were harassing black soldiers and causing problems. Man, there might have been a murder. I can't remember exactly. But I remember this very clearly because I was in Germany when this was exposed. They put undercover criminal investigation division agents in place, military police investigations, MPI, CID, went in to the barracks, and they uncovered this. And then these people were arrested. They were prosecuted. Some were jailed. The rest were kicked out of the military. And so we stomped on this. A huge amount of resources was devoted to this to stop this neo-Nazism. The federal government devotes endless amounts of resources to claiming that this country is full of dangerous white supremacists, when in fact that's a fairy tale. And there are a few of these clowns, but most of the people pretending to be white supremacists are actually federal agents running around dressed up and in lockstep, showing up for the media. If there are white supremacists, you should go after them. But there's a bigger concern here: jihadists. These people do not believe in our life, do not believe in our faith. And the government sweeps it under the carpet to pretend that it's not real. You can't racially profile. Well, who's racially profiling? People who are Muslims who profess radical Islam as their faith. That's not racial profiling. That's actually doing your job. And that's part of the problem here. That is part of the problem. Remember Major Hassan at Fort Hood who murdered all those soldiers? Yeah, in uniform. Yeah, instead of just accepting people who qualify and meet the minimum standards to come to the military, maybe we should start asking more probing questions. I've seen more energy put into an investigation of an officer who is honorable in the Air Force, whose ex-spouse that slept around with anybody who would dip it in for her and abandoned her children with her husband when she divorced him and left him in Germany with kids to raise. When she was asked questions by investigators about his clearance renewal, she lied. She obviously lied, never charged with a crime, wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars of resources in an investigation that had no merit whatsoever. His life completely turned upside down. Months of investigative effort. He couldn't work. We couldn't use him for several months because of this. And nearly had his post-retirement employment jeopardized in 6 figures because of his talent. But his clearance was restored 3 weeks before he left the military, all because of a fraudulent claim by a disgruntled spouse that could have been easily resolved with investigators spent 5 minutes being honest and looking at the file in Stuttgart. But no, we waste hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. Yet we allow jihadists to serve in uniform in our understanding and our awareness and our acceptance of others. We have imams in the military. We have Muslims in the military, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we also have jihadists in uniform that are being ignored actively by our military and by our government. We have jihadists in Congress. Yeah. Well, maybe they're not jihadists, but they certainly empathize with them. Minnesota, Massachusetts, places like that where they come from, and Michigan. Anyway, so that's going to do that, folks. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here in a moment. Twig and berries, yep. No, the guy who rented the Cybertruck was set alight. Thank you. They were both in the military and they were in the same camp. I have not seen confirmation. Well, we don't have camps, Kevin. Camps are for the National Guard. We have bases. We have installations. We actually have posts. We have an Army post. Carlisle Barracks is an Army post. Fort Bragg is an Army post. Nellis is an Air Force base. Norfolk is a naval base. And Vandenberg is a Space Force base. We don't call them bases. We call them posts. And of course, the camps are for the National Guard. So it's a little wordsmithing. No attack on you, just letting you know, Kellen, for the clarity. When you say camp, like Camp McCoy, well, it's Fort McCoy now. But when you say Camp Atterbury in Indiana, that's a National Guard installation. Post are Army, and National Guard are camps. Anyway, so we don't know they're from the same installation. That's been reported by the media, but I haven't been able to confirm that yet. ISIS, what's this? Wolf Giesinger. Well, that's a very, Wolf Giesinger. Ja, das ist ja sehr Deutsch. Yeah, nobody with a knob who parades around the dress should be, exactly. The Vegas guy was Special Forces intelligence officer. He was not an intelligence officer, Light Rain. That's not true. He's not even an officer. See how the stuff gets blown out of place? He's not an officer. He is not an intelligence. Hyperspectral imaging interrogator. He used fireworks to blow up a Tesla. Sounds preposterous. Yeah, exactly. And Roger Rabbit says, good show today. Well, this wasn't the show, folks. This is not the show. This was covering a live press conference. That's what this was all about. Anyway, so I've already set up another broadcast to do the news in 2 minutes, and you'll be redirected to that. So please hang around for my news coverage. It's coming up in just a few moments. I'm going to wrap it up here, and thank you. Be sure to hit the like button on this stream. We have another stream coming up immediately after this, which is the news, which I intended to cover beforehand. So hang in there. I'm getting a headache. I got to get some tablets for my headache. I've been working my butt off. There's one news story after another, video production, video, live streams, broadcasts, press conferences. It's been all out since the year started. Wow. All right, folks, we'll catch you here in just a few moments. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. And hit the like button, please. We got 6 more. We got 112 here. And let's see how many of the 112 show up for the news in just a few minutes, where we'll also discuss this topic. God bless and Happy New Year, folks. Cheers.